You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to the Live Your True Life Perspectives show, now called the Ashley Burgess Show. I'm glad to have you here today. And today we're going to be talking about recognizing the imbalanced, uneven relationship. Many of us are in an imbalanced, uneven relationship. And the real definition that I think is important to think about when we think about these types of relationships is it's when you're in a relationship and one person is held to a higher standard than the other person. And the other person creates rules and regulations that only apply to that other person and not to themselves. And so I think this podcast is going to be very revealing as to an imbalanced relationship and really the observations to really recognize when you are in one, because it can be kind of challenging. Am I in an imbalanced relationship, or is this a balanced relationship? Because it is a give and take situation, right? We do have to give. We do need to take. We do need to sacrifice to some degree in these relationships. So sometimes maybe it can be a little confusing. And so today's show is dedicated to anybody that's feeling a bit confused, a bit used, a bit resentment, as well as just overall like, hey, I want to make sure that this relationship is healthy. And if it's not, I need to figure out what I need to do. And so first and foremost, in an imbalanced relationship, there are rules that someone makes up. And it's interesting because those rules in the beginning seem that everything's good and okay, well, I guess I can live within these confines and these constructs of this relationship. But over time, and it takes a while because many of us have dealt with love bombing and this person may be kind of coming from a victim reality where we assume that what they're saying to us is genuine and true. And also sometimes these relationships start with a lot of affection and a lot of attention, which can also present itself as confusing as well. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's deep dive though into the concept of how the rules don't apply to that other person. So maybe there's various rules, and we're going to talk about those types of rules in the show right now, just to get you an idea about what those types of rules might be. Now, the first rule that comes to mind that seems to be applied in relationships is the other person suggesting that they don't trust the other person, or they question the other person's whereabouts, or they question what the other person is doing. And so they begin to question that other person so much that they don't actually come out and say, oh, hey, I'm going to need evidence to prove where you were or where you are. I want you to send me pictures or text or whatever. They don't come out and say that. It's not like they come out and say that and say, oh yeah, this is what I want. But they literally push the other person in the relationship to feel as though they have to present evidence every time they leave the house, every time they leave the apartment. And so I see that a lot of people go through this painstaking situation in life where all of a sudden what used to be just day-to-day routine, going into the office, going to meetings, maybe having to go to a lunch meeting, doing various things becomes almost, a situation when it comes to your phone. It's like, oh, I got to take a picture of this. Oh, look, I'm at the office. Or, oh, look, I'm at the luncheon with these 50 people, constantly taking photos. Maybe you're having to take your parent or your mom or dad to a doctor's appointment because they can't take themselves. I'm going to take a photo of that. I'm going to take a photo at the hospital. Maybe you're stuck in traffic and the person that you're in a relationship with is going off about how you're not home on time, or where are you, or you must be up to something. And so you take a picture of all the cars. Many of you have, live photo options on your phone where the person can see the time and date stamp to make sure that this is really what's happening. Maybe you have to provide receipts for where you are. Maybe you were getting your oil changed and it took a couple hours, way longer than you thought, and you have to present a receipt to that person, that type of thing. And then maybe they might still, balk at the receipt. I don't know if I believe this. And all the while, as you're presenting your case to defend yourself, to prove the fact that you're not doing whatever they're thinking you're doing, right? You're presenting this and you're in defensive mode throughout this process. The funny not so funny part about this, right, is that the other person is presenting no evidence of where they are. They don't have to provide any evidence or background information of what they even did that day. And if you're in an imbalanced relationship, you're experiencing this exact situation where you feel as though because you've been beaten up to present this evidence. And so you basically trained yourself. They didn't say, oh, you have to take a picture or you have to provide this, but you start providing this and it gets smaller and smaller, right? Your freedom becomes lesser and less. But the interesting part is the other person, even if you finally turn around, because many of you haven't even turned it around. You haven't even, what have you been doing today? Where did you go today? Did you go out today? What have you been doing? And eventually you have to turn it around and start asking the questions that that other person is asking of you. Because what they've done is they've created you to be so defensive that they don't even have to fill in the blanks. You spend more time defending yourself. They don't have to say anything. So you have no idea of their whereabouts that day. You have no idea what they've been doing, who they've been hanging out with, what's going on. Okay? And they've created it that way to keep you on your toes, to keep you stressed out, so that, guess what? You don't ask the question. And the only way that you can get, some sort of liberty and autonomy is to flip the script. And I'm not saying that you have to be tyrannical about it in this situation, but it's like, hey, you ask me all the time where I'm at. I'm going to start asking you where you are. And now it's time for you to prove to me what you're doing. Because it's interesting how I can't get in touch with you during the day, or I'll call you and you don't answer. But if I don't answer, it's a serious problem. If you don't answer, it's okay. And I find that to be very interesting. The next component that I want to talk about is a lot of times these folks will know your friends and your family. They'll know your friends and family. They will have met your friends, met your family. They'll know basically your circle, but you don't seem to know anything about their circle, who they spend time with, who are the people in their life. And they might talk about those people, those names, but you've never met those people with those names. You hear a lot about it, but you've never actually met them. And that's a really interesting place to be at too, because you're putting more time and effort into the relationship, introducing them to people and connecting with people, but they're not doing that for you. And that's interesting because, one, I feel like that person is obviously, they either have these friends or they don't. Either these friends are, the George Glasses of the Brady Bunch, or they are 1 foot out and they're wondering if this relationship's going to continue and they don't want to introduce you, or there's other things going on that they don't want you to know. And so they're keeping everybody at bay because otherwise they know that they have to triangulate a situation that they don't want to. Maybe there's somebody in their circle that's a lot closer to them than you're supposed to know. And if you get into that group, you're going to start figuring out some of this stuff. So as long as they keep you in the dark, they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to triangulate. They can just keep their world separate. But it's interesting how they want to meet each one of your friends. And a lot of times once they meet your friends, they got a problem with each and every one of them. Oh, your friend, I don't like him. He seems like a jerk. Or, oh, she's so uppity and she's got this attitude and ego and I just don't like her. They got something wrong with everyone. Okay. And then they'll talk bad about each person. And in the beginning of the relationship, a lot of times you kind of go, okay, or you might even believe them or you accept whatever they're saying. But later on, when you kind of come out of that love bomb fog, you go, wait a second, why do you have a problem with all my friends? Oh, I get it. Now I've separated myself from all of my friends because of you. Right? And so that's another thing that they like to do too in an imbalanced relationship is it's really about getting all your attention. They can give you crumbs and minimal attention, but they need you to be basically front and center to their play, their show, being on stage. They are constantly there. They want your attention. They don't want anybody to get that attention, but they can turn their gaze at any moment, at any time, and spend time with whoever they want to. Another aspect that I find in these types of imbalanced, uneven relationships is that person over time will say, you know what, I think that we shouldn't hang out with people of the opposite sex. I don't find it good. And this, I don't find it right if you were to hang out. So, let's say like it's the woman talking to the men. I don't think it's right if you hang out with women, or vice versa. And it's interesting. I've had many clients talk to me about that, and they said, hey, at first I was okay with it, but then I realized, I was doing this, but I had no idea of what he or she was doing. And eventually I realized that this again was imbalanced in the fact that I had gotten to a point where I felt like I couldn't even spend time with people that were coworkers, people that work with me. And if I did, it was in a very open social circle with every single person there at the office. But that begins to be interesting too, because you start regulating who you can spend time with so that you don't have a blow up. Because otherwise, many of you have realized that if you do, for example, have like a business dinner or something, and you text back and forth, and they're like, "Oh, so how are the guys doing?" Well, there's all these people here, and we had some of the women from the and it's game on. It's going to be a problem. And again, it's a double standard. A good example of this double standard is, and I had a client recently tell me about this. If they don't, so their significant other says, if you don't pick up the phone within the first couple of rings, we have a problem. Okay. But the other side of the coin is, my client will call them and they never pick up. They never answer the phone. They never pick up. They'll text. They won't even respond for hours. You see what I'm saying? That's a double standard, because if the opposite was happening, and my client was doing that to them, it would be World War III. And many of you know exactly what I'm talking about, like that barrage of text messages, one after the other, they're almost like they have a robot hand. Like you're like, what is this? Is this AI? Like, are you like, what is this, an auto dialer? What are you doing to be able to so quickly text me a barrage of things, basically telling me what a piece of crap I am, right? In so many words, and how I've done this horrible stuff to you when, I literally am in the gym or I'm in the bathroom. Okay. So, or I took a nap, for God's sakes, whatever it is, this has started World War III. But again, it's a double standard. And I find that it's all about control, right? So for many of us, we don't realize that these people are trying to control us on every level, trying to control our life at every level. And it's sad because many of them do it quite well. They're very good at trying to control our life. They're very good at trying to whittle down our world, trying to confine us, trying to make us where we only speak to certain people, where we only, spend time with certain people, to the point where we only really have them, that they are our end all be all. And then they can treat us however they want now, because that's all we have. And I think a lot of times we get into this nonsense in the belief system that if I just stop this one thing that's obviously irritating them very badly, or making them very uncomfortable, or their fear of abandonment is really being awakened by this, if I take that off the table, they're going to get better. But the thing is that it doesn't stop there. You take that off the table, they're going to request another thing. You take that off the table, they're going to request you to take something else off the table. And eventually there you are all alone by yourself, because they probably also found problems with your family dynamic. They don't like your family. Maybe they don't like your dad or your mother, and so they don't want to see them either. And then they make it hard for you to go see your family too, because, oh, well, where are you going? You're going to, we'll prove that you're going to go see your family. Oh, okay, really? Let me see some pictures. Okay, really? And so then that becomes a problem too. And over time, you begin to lose connection with everybody that really matters in your life. Another aspect of this imbalanced, uneven relationship is that, they request or demand that you don't speak to anybody that you've ever dated before, any of your exes. They don't want you to talk to them. They don't want you to be on social media with them. They don't want any of that. But the interesting part is it does not apply to them. I guarantee 95% of the time, I'm not saying every single time, 95% of the time, someone that demands that out of you, if you go into friends and stuff like that on their Instagram, or you go into that on Facebook, that is not the case for them. Their exes are part of their Facebook. Their exes are part of their social media. They've probably even been in communication with their exes on text or call. Okay? And so they do that to basically disarm you and basically encrust you in the situation where there is nobody else. So all the crap that they do to you, you just kind of have to deal with because that's all you got. You got this person and that's what you have left. And they make it that way so that you don't step out of line, so that you question, so that you are insecure. And then you're like, oh my gosh. And then they beat you down, right? About how bad you are, making you wonder, well, will anybody ever want to be with me? And then when things do get really, really, really unhealthy in an imbalanced relationship, they're basically breaking you down on a daily basis and telling you about how they're the only one that would ever accept you and they're the only one that will deal with you, and so it's really a sad state of affairs. But you can see how the slippery slope begins in a relationship that's imbalanced and uneven because that person's holding all the cards. They do this quite well. This is a mode of operandi. This isn't their first rodeo, okay? It's not like, oh, this is the first time they've done this. This is their programming. This is the manipulation game, okay? We're being manipulated on huge levels outside of our relationships, right? But this is a microcosm of the manipulation. This is a microcosm of the lies and the deceit. This is the microcosm of the things that we fall for. This is the microcosm of the stuff that we deal with that we don't need to be dealing with in our lives, but we choose to deal with it out of our fears, right? Out of our fear. And, another thing that I find interesting is that the other person in this imbalanced relationship, and visualize this, they continue to pull the carpet out from underneath your feet. They continue to pull the carpet from underneath your feet. And it's interesting because you're supposed to just grin and bear it. Okay? Grin and bear it. And what I mean by that is they're constantly making changes to your relationship without asking permission or without getting your acceptance. They just do it all the time. So things that you were supposed to do, that's changed. Scheduling is changed. Y'all were going to go to dinner. No, they're going to have a full-on argument. They're going to change. Oh, this was going to happen. They're going to change. Oh, you need to go do something for your family dynamic the next day. They're going to throw a fit. That's going to change. It's constantly moving things around. Now, if you were to do that to them, you would give them probably, an aneurysm, definitely a migraine, but they would also definitely not be participating. And so it's almost like everything changes, like the way that they want to do things or the way they want to handle a situation or how they want to interact with you. All those things change, and you're just supposed to go with the flow. You sack your feelings away, sack your thoughts away, because guess what? They don't care, and they're going to keep changing things. And so if you're in a relationship where you're like, wow, like things keep changing, like their feelings, this augmentation, all these things keep changing, and it's kind of messing with me, you might want to kind of take a look at that and see that for what it really is, because I think that could be very helpful for you to understand your situation a lot more clearly, and understanding how they keep moving things around. And there's a lack of care. There's a lack of empathy for what you're going through. They don't even really think about that, right? They don't think about that at all. And that's one of the biggest parts about an imbalanced relationship is the empathy part. The problem part is that there's not empathy. There's not care about you and where you stand. It's about where they are. It's a self-centered, manipulative strategy used to control you. And so when you're in these types of relationships, and I know that you have a lot more thoughts or examples as to what you're going through right now in your life right now and in the relationship you're in right now. And if you're in one of these relationships right now, I'm sending you as much love and courage to begin to stand up for yourself. And if you do need help and you'd like to work with me, this is what I do best, is help people stand up for themselves, to see the manipulation, to see the isolation, and to overcome it. Because this isolation that you're feeling is overwhelming. And many of you turn to drugs, alcohol, just trying to escape, work addiction to get out of it. But you don't have to do that, okay? Check out my website. Go to ashleyburgess.com, Ashley, BERGES.com. Click on coaching sessions and set up a session with me, and we can work together to overcome this. And life will get better. Your situation will get better, and you will be more at peace and happy, more than you have been in a very long time. So if you think about the situation, it is a complete double standard. It's a complete double standard. Gaslighting, manipulating you, playing this role of the victim. Now, they always play the role of the victim to some degree. Even if they act like a jackass, they're still playing the role of the victim. Oh, I can't do this because of, or this happened to me, and so this is changing my life because of. Oh, I can't get a job because of. Oh, I can't do this because of. It's never about them. It's always about someone else that has created a problem for them. And then you're supposed to feel sorry for them. And if you actually look back to the beginning of the relationship, you'll realize that the victim reality was much there. You just didn't see it. You didn't see it. You have all this empathy and care, and many of us have codependent tendencies where we want to give and give to other people in an effort to take care of them. But a lot of that is for what? Is because that's where we see our value. That's how we see our value. We don't see our value separate on our own. We feel like we have to give in order to have value. And that's something that's been trained on us as a child, and something that we need to recognize, because that's not true. That's a manipulation too. Many of us were raised in family dynamics where we felt as though we had to take care of others. Maybe we had an alcoholic mom or dad, or we had all these different types of issues. Or we had a narcissistic parent, or malignant narcissistic parent, or somebody else with cluster B dynamic, where we basically cater to them to try to get their love and affection, and hoping that we could get that. And here we are trying to get that in this relationship as well. In upcoming shows, we'll talk about the trauma bonds as well, because a trauma bond, unfortunately, is mistaken, for a relationship. It's mistaken for love, and we really need to look at that, because we don't want to mistake something for love, especially when it's something that can really hurt us. And so think about that. What are some of the double standards that you're dealing with? Think about those things, analyze those things. Is it right? Would it be right if you turn the tables around and you demanded this of them? Would they accept that? Would they change their ways? Would they go along with this? I don't think so. And so that's what I'm asking you to do today, is to get enough gumption, enough fire. A lot of people call it about fire in the belly, enough fire to kind of flip the script a little bit and see how they respond. Some of them are going to get very angry with you. Some of them are going to try to, shut you down. You got to be prepared for that. Right? That's a high manipulation tactic. Is you start asking me questions, now I'm going to get really bullish. Now I'm going to get very loud. Maybe I might start yelling. Maybe I might start throwing some stuff. You got to be careful, because they're going to try to shut you up. Some of them are going to get quiet, give you the silent treatment because they have no answers, because you're asking them real questions, and they're going to start to sweat. Others of them, you never know. But I do know one thing, is that they're not used to having their programming put back on them. And you start seeing kind of like things kind of falling off, the chinks in the armor. You start seeing the mask coming off, because you start realizing that this is a manipulative tactic. And the more manipulative they are, the more angry they'll get, the more they'll accuse you of. They might even start repeating themselves over and over again. And that's something that you got to be aware of too. And so we have to see the change. We have to flip the script and then see it for a period of time to realize what they're really doing. And then there's a next step to that. And we'll talk about that in another show as well. So begin to write down some of these double standards. Put that into writing so you actually see the fact that this is a double standard. Look at it, analyze it, and then start seeing, what if I flip the script and I demanded them to do this? How would they treat me? How would this relationship work? Is that even part of my thought process? Is that even thought of something that I would even do? Really want you to think about that, because once we start analyzing it from the other perspective, we're able to see things clearly. If you haven't already, check out my YouTube channel. Go to Life Coach Ashley Burgess. Life Coach Ashley Burgess on YouTube. We have about 200,000, almost 200,000 followers, subscribers on YouTube, and working to build that community. It's all information, and it's there, and it's to help anyone that's dealing with problematic, toxic relationships, as well as things of overcoming things, but also analyzing and understanding where they're coming from and understanding yourself. These videos are created to help you understand what you're in, what you're involved in, and to understand who you are, and to get the best out of your life, and to have the most knowledge that you can have, so that you can be powerful in all of your relationships, including the relationship with yourself. Also, don't forget, you can go on the website, ashleyburgess.com. You can learn more about me. You can contact me on the contact page. And you can also set up a session directly there where we can meet one-on-one and start working on these issues if you're in an imbalanced, uneven relationship, or whatever else that you're working in, that we can really make your life stronger and better. And I hope that you've liked this show. I hope that it's connected with you and the content has touched you. Please share with your family and friends. And I'll have another show next week, same time coming out. So if you have any ideas on some shows, definitely reach out on the contact page on the website and let me know, and I'll reach right back out to you. And the show was, Live Your True Life Perspectives. It's still Live Your True Life Perspectives, but now it's the Ashley Burgess Show. So the Live Your True Life Perspectives, the Ashley Burgess Show, will be back this time. Well, you know what? I'll be back this time, in 3 shakes.